Are you tired of the short-term patch to your health problems? Is avoiding medications and surgeries important to you? If you answered yes, then your prayers have been answered. Dr. Chris has been helping people transform their health for over a decade. He's a world-renowned health expert who specializes in holistic health. He's a professional speaker, chiropractor, and international best-selling author. It's his mission to help you reach your full God-given potential through holistic health and healing. Get ready to be inspired and transformed. Here's your host, Dr. Chris.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I hope you're having a blessed day. I want to try to bless you with just some great value today. I want to just try to pour into you as much as I can in these few minutes that I have with you, just to get that surge, that power punch of health, and so you can just start moving yourself in a better direction. You can start to help someone else in your life. Just start living life in abundance, because when you have your health, abundance is great. When you lose your health, abundance is small. So we want to live big. We want to just raise your life, raise your health to that next level so you can just accomplish some amazing things in your life. I don't want you to play small. I want you to play big. I want you to reach your fullest potential both inside and out. So today I want to talk to you about some things you really got to be careful of, some things you need to watch out for when it comes to your health. So I'm going to talk to you today about the 7 symptoms that you may be having right now that you should not ignore. All right, now there are some symptoms that we want to work with our body on and not be fast to squash those or go out and get somebody to help address those issues like coughs or fevers and those types of things. But there are some really serious symptoms out there that people don't think are serious, or maybe it's to the point where they're not getting limited from the symptom, but it's a big warning sign. And if you don't do something about these, you're going to have a lot of regret, because you're going to end up in that ER. And when you end up with that ER in that crisis situation, you're going to end up making more bad choices, because now your back's up against the wall. You're scared. You're in that fear mentality. You're going to be more likely to consent to different medications and procedures that might actually create more issues and make the problem even worse. And it's going to cost you a lot of money. Nowadays, I think the average ER bill is $5,000. So you could spend a few $100s or maybe even a couple $1,000s to do the right thing and get your body well now, or you can pay for it big time later on. And then a lot of times those ER visits that you go to, they may or may not get you out of that crisis, but it's a short-term fix. And so maybe you feel better for a couple of days, and then you're right back at it, and now you're stuck with a $5,000 bill just because they gave you a CAT scan, an MRI, and some Percocet, right? Not worth it. So what should you do? What are some things that have some very serious health conditions from diseases that you're starting to have now? I think I'm going to talk about all have chronic inflammation as the root cause. So headaches, gum disease, sleep disorders, sore joints, they all stem from that inflammation. If we don't get you well at the cellular level, then you're never going to get well. So inflammation isn't always a bad thing, right? In acute situations, it's a normal process in your body. It's great, such as when you have like a painful cut or bruise, a swollen ankle. It helps fight off that infection or heal that area, but the real trouble begins when the inflammation becomes chronic. So when this happens, your immune system is going to really just become fighting against itself. It's going to start to fight its own cells, which is going to lead towards a lot of harmful effects on your health. And right now, if you're enduring one of these 7 symptoms I'm about to talk about, don't ignore them. These could be telltale signs that the body is chronically inflamed. And instead of trying, Dr. Google to just patch it, you need to get to the cause, reduce the inflammation, and begin healing your body from the inside out. So remember, one of the best things you can do to reduce overall inflammation is what you're putting in your body. So like healing foods, a healing diet, focusing on clean proteins, healthy fats, low sugar carbohydrates. These are just going to be naturally anti-inflammatory things. But let's get into some of these symptoms, because we do not want to mess around with these. Number one, when we look at this, is headaches. Headaches are a big one. Now, you might think that, Dr. Chris, headaches aren't that big of a deal. I can deal with it. It doesn't keep me from doing anything. But headaches are not something to mess around with. You get that throbbing, the inflammation. might be the cause for sure. But not only are migraines and frequent headaches especially painful, but they also are the precursor to a lot more serious conditions. You got to help fight these headaches naturally. You want to seek towards finding organic foods and ingesting more high fibers in addition, but you can also be taking magnesium, because a lot of times that plays a vital role in our body's functioning and deficiencies in a lot of these things. Like magnesium and other nutrients will create a huge role in that as well. But also a lot of times something called subluxation, which is basically a pinching of the nerves in that top part of your spine, will create those migraines, but that also controls 90% of your body's functions up there, from your digestion to your heart rate to the blood flow to your brain to your hormones. So we don't want to mess around with that. Number 2, tooth and gum health, bad breath, gingivitis. Again, these are something that you definitely don't want to take lightly. These are really a sign of bacterial infection. And not only are these conditions embarrassing, but they can lead towards some systemic problems as well. And so when you have these things, they will start to create chronic inflammation in your body through your blood system. And you can just use homemade things. Like you can do coconut oil pulling to help fight gum disease. You can use some homemade toothpaste. But these are just some inexpensive things you can do to help fight gum disease naturally. Number 3 is gut diseases like indigestion, IBS, leaky gut. They're probably the most common, and all have inflammation at their roots. But unfortunately, these things can become cancerous very quickly. So making sure that you're putting good foods. One of the best things you can do for gut disease is by putting bone broth in your diet. It has a lot of healing properties, soothes the lining of the gut, keeps toxins out of the bloodstream, and also probiotics and enzymes are really good at helping treat these things naturally. Number 4, we look at our mood swings and anxiety. So maybe you've been feeling like blue, or you just been extra moody or anxious, and it might surprise you that actually inflammation could be playing a huge role in that. In fact, research shows that inflammatory cytokines, these are basically proteins released by the cells, can a lot of times spur this depression-like behavior. So a great way to help reduce some of those symptoms and that problem is ashwagandha, these adaptogenic herbs, putting them in your daily routine. More B12 vitamins, omega-3s, the good fatty foods. All these are shown to help fight depression and anxiety just through nutrition. And then we look at number 5, which is sleep disorders and insomnia. Now, I've helped a lot of people with this, and including my own wife, and tossing and turning at night. Definitely can be several different factors, but one of the common things I see is inflammation from stress responses. So persistent insomnia affects about 10% of American adults, but it's been linked to a lot of high mortality rates. But just start to create those good habits. Don't go to the drugs, because those drugs are habit forming. They can create strokes, all kinds of bad issues. But get the right temperature in your room, using essential oils, limiting your caffeine, setting up a good routine before you go. But I have other podcasts that you can listen to, and I'll try to include that in this, that you can listen to on helping yourself get better sleep and falling asleep faster. And then number 6 we look at is fatigue. So no part of the body is safe from the effects of inflammation, right? Inflammation can affect the whole body. It can be systemic. But one study that is really interesting is one that they did with mice with inflamed livers, and they had behavioral changes like fatigue that followed when they were in that induced fatigue state. So gut inflammation is one of the symptoms that have also been linked with chronic fatigue syndrome. So if you're just feeling like plain old drained, hey, I've got some other podcasts. I'll link on this in the notes here. But those with chronic fatigue syndrome, definitely got to opt out of that sugar. Get rid of the gluten as well as a big one, and really just try to add as many superfoods as you can, like a superfood powder or even the ashwagandha again. And then number 7, you do not want to ignore the symptom, which is arthritis and stiff joints, because both inflammatory arthritis, such as rheumatoid and psoriatic, and even just basic joint pain, can be attributed to joint inflammation. But this will create huge effects in your function and what you're able to do in your life long term. So, I've seen people be affected by this in just a year or two, getting so bad that they can't do the simple things that they enjoyed doing. going fishing, traveling, playing with their grandkids. But it's taxing, and there's some really cool things you can do naturally to help to decrease that inflammation. So taking proteolytic enzyme supplements, eating more essential fatty acids, like those found in wild-caught salmon, grass-fed beef, and even increasing your intake of potassium and sodium can revitalize your body's cells and eliminate toxins, which create a lot of that toxicity in your body. And then one of the best things is to get movement in those joints so that things don't start to fuse together, because a lot of people think that there's nothing you can do for arthritis, but there's obviously a lot. And one of the best practices is to get movement back into those joints, and getting very specific movement where the main cause of that issue is. So if you can do things like regular chiropractic care to get those joints moving, because there's huge studies that show that segment, that level of the spine that has arthritis, and you follow that nerve to an organ, that organ will disease and break down faster versus a joint that doesn't have that arthritis. And within just a week of not having normal movement in a joint, you'll start to develop scar tissue and arthritis. So again, you imagine part of your body not being functioning well for a month, a year, 5, 10, 20 years, you're going to have some pretty serious issues there. And it might take some time to get normal movement and function back into that area of your nervous system. But you got to understand, it's not just affecting that joint, it's going to affect a huge area of your physiology with that as well. So that it's going to start to affect your posture when that joint starts to break down, which posture is directly related to your hormones. So when you actually have good posture, hormones like cortisol levels, growth hormone, dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, all these things are affected and are balanced and regulated by your posture and by your spine. So don't ignore that at all. Make sure you're taking care of that. And again, when you have these symptoms, I mean, you know the difference between chronic symptoms and just a one-time occurrence. But if you're the person that says, oh yeah, you know what, I've just had it for so long, I don't even notice it anymore, that's a big sign. Like, you got to do something about that, because eventually you will start to notice it again. And when you notice it, it's going to be 10 times worse than you've ever experienced in your life. And it's so much easier to try to prevent a disease or a problem than trying to overcome a disease or a condition once you've already had it. So just remember, work with your body, not against it. Work with some symptoms, but some of those symptoms I just talked about, make sure you start to do something about them, because your body needs no help healing. It just needs no interference. So until next time, have a blessed day.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To get this and other episodes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to newedgewellness.com or listen to the Happy Healthy Hormones with Dr. Chris podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher.